I'm going to do a demonstration of sampling, and we're going to look at why a random sample is so important. Now, if we were all together in class, we would be doing this as a group activity, but obviously with social distancing, we're not able to do this all together. So at a couple different points, I'm probably going to ask you guys to pause the video and to try these pieces on your own, just so that you have something to compare to, like look at my answers, look at your answers, and then we're going to look at some data from when I was able to do this as a class activity last year. All right, so what we're going to be doing is trying to determine the average length of a word in the Star-Spangled Banner, in the national anthem. We are going to select a sample of 10 words, and we're going to use that to try to estimate the average length of all the words in the first two verses of this song. So first we're going to do a convenience sample. A convenience sample is where I look at the words in the song and I try to pick out what to me looks like a representative sample, but this should also be a very quick process. So I'm going to take just a moment and get all the words up on the screen, and then I'm going to pick out my sample. All right, I've got all of the words, the first two verses up on the screen here, and I'm going to quickly go through and select 10 words that I think are representative of the song. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, I've circled 10 words in the song, and then I'm going to write each of those words over on the line. I've written all 10 of my words that I circled on the lines, and now I want to determine the length of each word, how many letters make up that word. So proudly, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letters in proudly. Gleaming, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 letters in the word gleaming. Bright, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to do that for the remaining words in my sample here. All right, I've got all of the lengths of all of the words that I've picked. And now I'm going to take those lengths and I'm going to add them all together to get a total number of letters in these 10 words. I'm going to add all these pieces and I'm going to put my grand total on this line right down here. All right, when I added all of those letters up, I got a grand total of 67 letters in those 10 words. And so now I'm going to calculate the average number of letters in those 10 words. We picked out 10 words, so I'm going to do 67, and I'm going to divide that by 10 to get the average down here. When I do 67 divided by 10, I get that the average is 6.7 letters in each word. All right, I want you guys to pause the video now, and I would like you to go through and do the exact same thing that I just did. So go through, circle 10 words. This should be a convenience sample, so pick out your sample quickly, words that you think are representative of the Star-Spangled Banner. Write those 10 words down, count the length of each word, add those 10 lengths up, and then divide by 10 to figure out the average number of letters in the 10 words in your sample. Now that you have your average word length, I found mine to be 6.7. This here is a dot plot for when I did this activity in class last year. Each one of those dots represents the average word length for each student in the class. And so this is the distribution that we had. And when we looked at this in class together, we said, well, if we had to guess what the true average was, we're going to guess that it's somewhere around 6.3 because we noticed that there was a big bump of data right between 6 and 6.5 here. So again, this is what we got when we did a convenience sample. We're going to try a random sample next and see if our average is still the same or is at least close to what we got when we did a convenience sample. To do my random sample, I have taken over here on the left side of the screen, you can see that I have all the words from the first 2 verses of the Star Spangled Banner, each with a number assigned to them. Starts with number 1, and it goes all the way to number 158. And then over here on the right-hand side of the screen, I did a Google search for random number generator. And Google has their own random number generator. I put in here that I want my minimum to be 1, because that'll correspond to the first word, and that I want the maximum to be 158. And so I'm going to use this random number generator to pick out the words that we are going to use for this random sample. All right, so I'm going to click on the generate button. It picked out word 93. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to highlight this. All right. We're going to highlight that there, and then I'm going to generate. We have word 12 this time. I want to do this until I have 10 words picked out. Word 148. So there's the third one. 89. If I manage to get a duplicate, I'll just generate and keep going until I have 10 different words. All right, word 11. Interesting. All right, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got half of them. Word 135. Word 86. Word 153. Way down here. How many more words do I need? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I need 2 more words. Word 101. And word 30. All right, let me double check my count here to make sure that I have 10 words highlighted. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I've got 10 words picked out. All right, I got rid of my random number generator off to the side there. Now I need to figure out the total number of letters in the 10 words that I have highlighted that are my sample. So in what, I have 4 letters. So has 2 letters. Fight has 5 letters. So I've counted these 3. Let's see, through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letters in the word through. Of only has 2 letters. The has 3 letters. What has 4 letters. In has 2 letters. The has 3 letters. And also has 3 letters. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just like before, I'm going to add all those letters up and figure out what the total is. I got 35 when I added all those up. So if I take 35 and I want to find the average, since it's 10 words, I'm going to divide that by 10. So my average this time is 3.5, which is quite a bit lower than when I did my convenience sample. All right, I've gotten rid of all of my highlighting on the screen. I would like you guys to pause the video, use a Google random number generator, or you can use a different random number generator. Use that random number generator to pick out a random sample of 10 words, and I want you to calculate the average of the 10 words in your sample. And here is the class dot plot of the simple random sample. That's what we did by using the random number generator. For last year's class when we did this together, again, each dot represents an individual student's average when they did the random number generator. So if you'll notice, there's a big bump of data right here. Mine would have been over here, but notice that's still really close to this big bump of data. So when we did this in class, the guess in class was that the average word length, the true average word length for everything in the song, was 4.5 letters. The actual average, this over here, would be considered a parameter. This is using software to determine the average number of letters in each word is 4.4. So what I want you guys to notice is that when we put our data together as a group using a simple random sample, we got much closer to what the true average is than when we used a convenience sample. When we were in class together last year, we also did the cluster sampling method, which I'm not going to take the time to demonstrate right now. But I want you to notice on this cluster sampling dot plot that we still were able to get very close. Notice that big bump of data is right there in between 4 and 5 when we use the cluster sampling method. We're able to get very close to what the true average is. And then we also did systematic sampling. And when we did our systematic sampling, we came back with results that were a little on the lower side. But all of these methods, the systematic sampling, cluster sampling, and simple random sampling, we were able to get much, much closer to what the true average was than when we picked out our convenience sample. On the convenience sample, some students got close to what the actual average was, but for the most part, the majority of the class had the averages as being much, much higher than what it truly is. And this is why we want to make sure that we are using a random technique to pick out our sample. Convenience sampling isn't very accurate when we go to try to make generalizations to the larger population.